Let's call this meeting of the HHR Building Committee to order at 6:03 p.m. on July 26, 2023. First order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from July 19th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve those? Sarah had attached them when she sent the agenda out. Can I get a motion to approve? I can't. Some folks either don't have their cameras on.
David Martin, second. I see David Martin, seconded by Jameson.
Motion here.
Yeah, David Martin seconded. All in. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous. Okay.
Chris, before we jump into the meeting, because we still have some newer people, do you mind just one more time introducing everybody who's on, just so everybody's aware of who's on the call before we start?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll just go as to how people are lined up on my screen. We have from Bldg AP, our construction manager, Dave Cravenzola and Laurel Purcell. We have our first selectman, Monica McNally. We have Alan Adley, the superintendent of schools. We have Eric Kyer from KG&D, our project architects. I don't see Travis. We have Kevin Monrette also from Darien Public Schools, who is the facilities director for the public schools. We have, I believe, the three principals from the schools, Paula Blakely from Holmes, Natasha Torrey from Royal, and Carrie Snowden from Hinley. Hi, everybody. And then in terms of committee members, we have Jameson Riley, myself, Chris Price, Jill McCammon, David Martin, Patrick Hayes, and Sarah Newman. I do see Travis Schnell is on as well from KG&D, from our architects. Did I miss anybody? We have Molly Hirsch. Molly, you are with?
Darien Times.
Darien Times, okay. So
I see also Tom
with that,
from AP.
With that, let's. Oh, I'm sorry. There's Tom Walsh from AP. Sorry, who is the joint venture partner with O&G. So he is likewise part of the construction management team. Thank you, Jill. With that, let's jump in. I don't see any members of the public that have joined for public comment. If anybody from the public is on, please identify yourselves, but I don't see anybody, and so we can skip over public comment. In terms of the chair's report, not a heck of a lot other than there have been a number of conversations leading up to what we're going to get into this evening, which is going to be a presentation by O&G AP with regard to the project schedule and the project bidding process. And so I'm going to turn it over pretty much right now to Laurel, Dave, and Tom. And then once they're done, we'll have a discussion on the matters that they presented, and we'll go into hopefully taking committee action. Jill, anything you want to add from the chair's report standpoint? No. So with that, I will turn it over to Laurel, Dave, and Tom Walsh for their presentation and recommendation.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen, so hopefully it will work okay.
Right, so we've put just a few slides here, 4 slides, just to go through a little bit of the process that we've been going through, and then talk about some of the next steps that we've been collectively working on over the past few weeks.
All right, can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
So one of the main topics today is dealing with the bid results that we had reviewed at the last meeting, and to talk about next steps. So why are we here? Why is this the discussion we're having? The main reason is that the public bidding process that we underwent, it resulted in a much lower participation than expected, especially in our key trades. And the direct reflection there was lower participation, higher numbers, higher variance from our budget. When we had restructured the schedule later this spring, as we were going through the estimating and document review process, when we had moved the bidding period out, we had planted this project, now looking back, smack dab in one of the busiest times of the year, and part of that translated into getting the low participation that we saw. So with that, as you know, we've been working the past few weeks on canvassing the trade community to figure out, what were some of the main factors that affected the participation, and then talk about setting ourselves up for success for bidding this at a date later than today. So before I hand it over to Laurel, I just want to recap a few tidbits with you. We invited, in general, about 240 different companies to bid the project across all the packages. And over the course of the last week and a half, we contacted approximately 150 of those companies. Some of them we were not able to get through to them, left messages, but we asked them a series of questions, trying to get a better understanding for what drove the level of participation that we got, and what is it that we can do differently to improve the participation going forward. So a couple of the main things that we did gather from that, the common themes were that people were very busy and overworked, and that was not only for the actual field crews, but it was for people's estimating resources. And we realized that these bidding, when they did, they exceeded the effort or the resources that these companies had. Next was, with the market is busy as it is right now, there were some issues with people feeling that they could commit to the work because of their current manpower and getting that manpower down to Darien, especially with the accelerated schedules that we had put into the schedule or into the contract. And then lastly was the extent of work on the street and the ability for bidders to really pick and choose the work that they're going after. Some of those people chose to pick another project over ours. With that, with the information we have, we were able to get. Yeah, Chris. Sure. Do you have a question, Chris?
No, I was going to say, finish your thought, but maybe you could let people know whether there was a correlation between those trades where you had what you would consider a normal number of bidders and the extent of the variance from
Sure.
the estimates. In the cases where you had fewer bidders, was the variance greater? I think that would just be I don't know that we have the data yet to pinpoint it specifically, but that might be a good trend if that's something that you can highlight.
Well, yeah, and I'd say that we're not at the point where I would advocate for talking about the details of exact bids and numbers and what it does relate in relationship to the budget, and just because we're not finalized in the analysis right now. But given that, generally where we had three or more bids for one given package, we saw that variance from the budget to plus or minus 5%, which is not necessarily, that's good. Obviously our end numbers were considerably more than that, but that was generally the trend where we had the coverage that we would have expected, the 3+ bidders, our variances were lower.
Okay,
Does that
thanks.
answer that
I'm sorry.
question?
Keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. So with
Yes.
that, I really want to, Laurel, I think now it's time we can probably turn to the, the second bullet point here, and then talk about the fact that through this solicitation process, we've polled the community, and we feel that we have a good level of commitment from the trade community bidding this project. More so Laurel will go over the schedule, but in the fall, bidding it and having a better turnout for bids. And with that, unless anyone has any specific questions for me, I'd like to turn it over to Laurel, who's been spearheading a lot of this other effort.
Right. So along with the debriefing, I was also conducting scope reviews of some of the major trade contractors that did bid, just to see if there was any cost savings ideas. So that was going on concurrently. If the suggested path forward is to delay the start of the project to allow for rebid of selected trade packages, that would help document to the town and the state of what the true bid value is, and that is what's reflecting the current market. If we were to proceed with the bids that we have right now with some of the single bids, it's not necessarily reflecting the current market. Rebidding also allows us to eliminate the accelerated schedule requirements. We were trying to make up that time. We would take that back out again from the construction schedule. We feel it would attract additional bidders and competition. It would also mitigate procurement and supply chain risks and concerns, because we weren't just crashed on top of starting construction the way that this project was originally bid. It also provides time for approval of additional funding that may be required, very likely be required. And it also allows us to be able to incorporate any cost savings suggestions into the final construction documents. And the cost savings ideas are nothing to do with quality. It's more about an alternative way of doing something. But there is a why not. There is still the risk of potential escalation costs. We will be delaying the construction. So some bidders may see that as additional labor percentages. So there may be a risk of potential escalation costs in the rebid as well. So I just want to put that out there. So the question becomes which trade packages to accept or rebid. We are going to be making a recommendation to the building committee. We need to do more due diligence on this. It's going to basically come down to the following 4 factors. First off, we need to develop a new construction schedule for each of the 3 school projects. We then need to hand it out to the low bidders where we had enough competition on, to see if they're willing to hold their price based on the new construction schedule. We will be looking at the bids in relationship to budget. If we did only get 1 bid or 2 bids, and it's relatively reasonable within the budgeted amount, then we'll consider them as holding on to. We'll also consider the number of bidders that bid the trade package. So if we had 6 roofing bids, let's say, and even though it was slightly higher than our budget, and it wasn't in this case, I'm just giving an example. If we had a sufficient number of bidders, it's almost like regardless of what the estimated value was, because that's the true market condition. So we'll consider that. And also, as was alluded to with Dave, when we're doing the canvassing of all the bidders, what is the potential number of bidders if we do in fact rebid the trade package? Do we think we have enough competition? So all that's going to play into a second tier recommendation. The first tier for tonight is the suggested path of moving forward. The second tier will be getting the building committee together again to decide on which packages to reject. Therefore, that triggers us going out for a rebid. So that's resulting in a revised timeline. So when I said validate bids to accept, that's the process I was just describing. Basically taking the next 5 weeks or so to get through that process. Again, we have to create the new construction schedules. We have to get them out. We have to allow the bidders time to respond. So that's going to take a while. And we were thinking right after the Labor Day weekend, having a building committee meeting, that we would then be prepared to recommend which bid packages should be rejected and rebid. Then we will do a finalization of rebid documents. That's where we would incorporate any sort of cost savings. We would reissue the revised construction schedules, and actually re-advertise. We've allowed about a 5 to 6 week process for the rebid, and then following that would be scope reviews. So we'll have to repeat the process of scope reviewing whichever trade packages are inevitably getting rebid. At the same time, in the meantime, there's somewhat of an overlap going on with the town securing the additional funding. So the process will start once we've received all the bids, but that process can be going hand in hand with our scope reviews. We'll be further refining the number. Once I'm done with my scope reviews, we will be preparing a GMP amendment. That would also be finalized so that the town inevitably will have the final number before we're asking them for that final commitment. Once the GMP, guaranteed maximum price amendment, is finalized, the building committee will be reviewing it and approving it. So we're seeing that early January timeframe, and then we are taking the early spring months to start our procurement and basically start construction later in the spring. And that's the end of my presentation.
Laurel, this is Dave Martin here. The way
Go ahead, Dave.
the way this looks, you're getting the town funding. The town approves additional funding prior to the signing of the GMP.
No, that review and approval of the GMP is going to follow the town funding.
Yeah, Dave, I think we need to have town approve, and if additional funding is needed, we need to have that appropriation approved before we can award contracts and enter into the GMP.
All right, we'll just have to be pretty clear with the numbers in terms of where we are before, because we can't take a chance on having the GMP come in at a number that's higher than what we seek for approval, right?
But I think the idea is that we would have much more clarity. I think the idea is we would have much more clarity on the amount, if any, of an additional appropriation after the bidding process, right? And because before we accept the bids, we'll know what the bids are that we're proposing to accept. So we should have pretty hard numbers to take to Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the various RTM subcommittees and the full RTM.
That said, I think, David, we absolutely agree with you, and that is why we actually did talk to Laurel about building a schedule so that we could put an approval in between receipt of bids and grant of bids.
Award of contracts.
To your point, we will need to make sure that our numbers are absolutely as tight as possible.
Okay.
We're in agreement with you on that.
All right.
And I think one thing we didn't cover in this presentation, and I know, and I'll let Travis speak to it, and I don't know kind of quite where it fits in the timeline, and I don't know that we necessarily have all the information we need on this, but so that everybody's aware of it, we're not losing sight of any involvement in the state OSCG&R process. So maybe Travis, you can comment briefly on that.
Yeah, we still are waiting to hear back from Michelle so we can have a follow-up conversation and ask her some more detailed questions so we know how that process overlaps and may influence Laurel's schedule. So I have several calls and emails into Michelle, and we will follow up with her.
Right. So for the committee and others, we're very, very focused on how that may play into this overall schedule, and we just need to get more feedback from the state.
So Laurel,
With that, go ahead.
Yeah, can you back up and explain why you chose an October bid date versus a January bid date, given that we are looking at a late spring, summer timeframe?
Well, when we polled the bidders, actually one of our questions was, would you prefer to bid it in October, November, or January? And the majority of the bidders responded they would rather bid it October, November. It just gives more time, more assurance of getting those long lead items there on time. So we figured we would grab it as quickly as we can, as opposed to pushing it off till after the holidays.
Okay. And so if the building committee agrees with this being the, next sort of schedule, and that this being your delay, a next step would be talking to the school district in detail about what timing works for late spring and summer. Is that
Yes.
correct?
So what the actual start date should be. Should it be in April or should it be a summer? We need to analyze that to see what is the better scenario.
Okay.
Chris and Jill and Laurel and Dave, I don't know what the dates are, but I think there's a clock on the bids that we have to reject them by. What is that date?
Well, the bids are guaranteed. The bidders are required to hold the bids for 90 days.
Okay.
I'm not sure that there's a clock on rejection, but maybe there is. I've never been in that position before.
We'll double check that, Sarah. I don't think we are limited to that. It's more a matter of we have to act on it within the 90 days.
When I was speaking with the town administrator, she mentioned that there might be a clock, and so I'd like to make sure that we obviously don't miss that.
Yeah, our first bids were due July. When was our first bids due? July 11th, I'm going to say. No, June 29th. June 29th is when our first bids were due. So we've got July, August. Yeah, and I'm asking you to take action beginning of September. So we should be safe. If it's still 90 days, but we'll check that.
Okay, thank you.
I know that you don't have an exact start date here, but what is the approximate end date with this delay?
It's pretty much a year later than the original end date. It's basically pushing it off a year.
And what's the actual date, please?
Well, we had August of 2025, so now it would be August 2026.
Thank you.
So, obviously this is, there's probably a silver lining to some of this, being able to take out the acceleration, being able to optimize the supply chain so that we are, not running against the clock. But obviously, we can't choose to do this in October and then have it happen again. What level of confidence do you all have? I think it's really critical that we hear from the team that, that we have a level of confidence that this is a good solution for us.
Well, I think it's a good solution for you because the only alternative for staying on schedule is to accept some of those higher bids. And you would be committed, like you could partially accept some of the higher bids and just move along and still try to rebid but you're really opening up risk with not knowing the total story. I think this approach gives the building committee the total story of what the project is going to cost. And we will make sure before we recommend to reject bids, we'll make sure that we do in fact solidly think that we have a pool of bidders that will be waiting for these projects this time.
And Laurel, part of that is through the effort of making the calls, of compiling a list of approximate numbers that we feel, people that are said, yes, I will bid it, and people that have said, yeah, it's likely that I will bid it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a list, I believe we've been getting good feedback in that the packages that we initially are thinking will be subject to rebid. We have that minimum of 3, and some are 5, 6, 7 bidders that have at this point told us that yes, you bid in October and we're going to bid the projects.
Hey, Jill, can I ask a question?
Any other questions or input from? Yeah, go ahead, Monica.
So, Laurel, the last meeting you mentioned another round of HVAC work being done on the state level, and can you remind me what the timing is on that? Because I feel like that was a big number, and are you at the right time in regards to that?
Yes, I'm right in the middle. Michelle had explained to us that they had just issued a round. So that's what a lot of that was what we were competing with. This October timeframe is before the next round, which she said was coming out around February. So we're trying to be before that next round.
Thanks.
Were all trades on the accelerated 6-day work week schedules?
All trades were on the accelerated 6-day work week schedules until the additions were enclosed. So it did impact all of our structural, our mechanical, electrical, and our enclosure. So yes, just not the flooring and the painting, not our finished trades, not our roofer. I don't think I had the roofer on. I think it stopped at the roofer. But pretty much we were gaining back that first, I don't know, 4 months, everybody was on 6-day work weeks, but it was a majority of the trade contractors.
Okay. Will we need to rebid those to go back to a normal 5-day work week schedule?
What we're going to do is we're going to come up with a normal 5-day work week schedule, and the bidders that, based on the criteria I'd mentioned earlier, if they happen to be on that, like I don't want to put out any names. So if it's somebody that we think is a valid bid, and it was close to our budget, and we want to see if they will hold their numbers, we're going to give them a revised schedule. And we're going to say, hey, if you're willing to accept this new schedule at your original bid price, you'll get these projects or this project, depending on if it's 1 or 2 or 3. So if they're willing to honor their original bid price with the revised construction schedule, then then we would recommend them for award.
Has that been successful in the past?
It has been, yes, it has been successful in the past, once or twice that we've actually had to rebid a couple of packages, and stuff got delayed just a little bit. And we do it formally in writing with a letter, so there's documentation.
Dave Martin,
of it.
you had Dave Martin.
Well, with regards to that, we don't think that if we rebid all the packages, that all the packages will have greater participation, and we might actually end up with a lower price than our current packages.
No, Dave, I don't think that would be the case. Again, ones where we did see, I would say a good turnout of bidders, and where they're relatively close to the budget, especially if we know that that's not a scope of work that we could drastically change. I don't see the benefit of us throwing out those bids and going carte blanche with all of them.
But we will know that information, or not necessarily that information, but we'll know more information, I think, about the bids, Laurel. Is that correct? Because I think
yes, because and I'm assuming that these bidders are willing to hold their bids for the revised schedule. Some of them may say, no, I'm not going to hold my number for that. So I don't know. I haven't asked our low bidders yet, or the people that we would entertain keeping. I haven't asked them if they're willing to honor their numbers. They may very well say, no, we're not willing to honor our numbers. So again, that's what my next round is. My next focus is going to be seeing who's going to be a valid bid and who should be thrown away.
And the building committee.
If that happens, right? So if somebody says they won't hold their bid, then you rebid that package, presumably, right?
Correct. And it's going to be different per school. If we have different bidders per school, somebody on one school may say, hey, yeah, I'll hold my number. And somebody on another school for that particular trade package may say, no, I'm not willing to hold my number. So it's going to be a whole, all three schools. You know, it's going to be.
Well, and that's actually, why don't you elaborate on that a little bit in terms of your the approach to, you know, we split the bidding up this summer. We did Hindley and Royal, and then we did Holmes. And is the idea now that you would go out, leaving aside those folks that hold their bid, for those trades that you're going to rebid? Is the idea that you're going to rebid all three schools at the same time and request people to bid on all three schools, or what are the options that they're going to be given in terms of how they respond?
We're going to bid all three schools at the same time this time because obviously people have had a chance to take a look at the documents. We're going to bid all three schools, and we're going to give them the option of bidding any of the single schools singularly, and then we're also going to give an option they can bid all three. So they'll have the opportunity to give me a form proposal for all three schools, or they can pick and choose any of the various schools if they want to bid it that way. If we make it all or none, if we make it all three schools, we will be excluding some of the smaller contractors that did participate in this bidding process. They would no longer be able to participate. So we definitely don't want to exclude the people that can do the one job and not the other two.
Dave Cravendola, backing up to your discussion, you mentioned you contacted approximately 150 contractors. Thank you for that legwork. I'm curious, though, what percentage of those folks you were able to get some meaningful information from?
I would say, Jill, that, hold on, let me just, I would say about probably 60%.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you guys talk a little bit more about the escalation risk? What do you, I understand what that is, but walk us through, you know, a little more detail, what you see there.
Well, what I've heard from one or two bidders is that if we pushed it out a year, escalation, they saw like 3%. So they wouldn't want to hold their number. It would cost them 3% more in labor. So it depends on who the bidder is, if whether or not they think they can absorb that additional cost in their original number. But that was one bidder's opinion. So some bidders are going to look at what their bid amount is and see if they can absorb the added cost, because labor rates do go up every year, truly, especially on prevailing wage jobs. They truly go up. New rates are issued every July 1st. So by kicking this out a following year, everybody that has labor in that second year, it will cost them more.
So what would you see the next steps as being I know you talked about a meeting on the 9th, but what are the next set of meetings, and what information would the committee be reviewing at those meetings?
I had a paper here. So what I will be doing is I will be doing this validating the bids, also managing the cost savings ideas to get them incorporated. Still reaching out to bidders. I think what we should do is touch base in about 3 weeks, have another building committee meeting. I think we were thinking around August 16th. It's 3 weeks from now, and it's 3 weeks before what I was shooting for was September 6th for that meeting for the rejection of the bids. So we can give you an update of where we think we are and how I'm getting, what reactions I'm getting from the bidders as far as whether or not they're willing to accept the bids. But I think it's going to take that amount of time.
So when do you think you'll be able to report on that? I think Jill mentioned the 9th, but do you think that needs to be the 16th of August to get us back that report?
Yeah, because yes, we need to get this revised construction schedules out to the bidders and give them a chance to get back to us. So that's going to take a little while.
Okay, so we're going to ask the committee to hold the 16th and the 9th. The 16th will be an interim report on sort of your findings to date. The 9th would be actually deciding whether to accept any of the bids.
Jill,
And then-
you're saying the 9th, but it should be in September and it should be the 6th.
Yeah, I'm saying the 16th. I'm sorry, I'm looking at 9. I've written 9/06. Forgive me.
Okay.
August 16th and September 6th. Yes,
Correct.
thank you.
Yes.
So in the 16th, you'll give us an interim report of where you are, but on the actual 6th, that is when we will accept some percentage of bids, presumably depending on your findings, and then determine which trades will move forward with rebidding. That's your
right. It's the 16th is more of just a check-in to let you know how we're making out and how if I'm hearing any feedback yet. I still need that last couple of weeks of August to finish getting all the responses. It's really just a check-in in the middle of August.
Chris, I see Patrick has his hand up.
Thanks, Jill. And I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
I'm in transit. I apologize, everyone. So no camera here. And can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so not to revisit David's question, but is there any scenario where a bidder bid one school and we might get a better price from them if they bid all three? There's not one scenario where that's the case?
There is that scenario, yes. There is that scenario.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is going from an accelerated schedule to a 5-day. We're asking bidders to hold their price for an accelerated schedule when we're going to actually ask them to perform the work on a regular schedule?
We're going to ask them to perform the work on a regular schedule, but the entire schedule is going to slide out a year.
And you think that's a comparable swap?
Well, it's for them to decide. If they say no, I'm not going to honor my bid, then we know that we know we need to rebid it.
Well, we can also ask them for credit and let them.
Well, but Patrick raises a good question, right? Which is, if they bid on a 6-day, schedule and their number was X, and now we're saying, okay, it's going to be a year later, but it's going to be a 5-day schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think their number might be X minus because it's 5 days, not 6?
We should certainly ask.
Even though their number at X was the lowest number.
Well, Chris, this is Tom Walsh. I would tell you that if we can get them to hold their number and eat the escalation, that's a good deal. The overtime is only for a portion of the job, not for the whole job, right? So I would think that if we can get the subs to hold their number, that would be a good deal for the town.
Tom, is the 6th day?
I'm sorry.
Overtime at like 150%?
Well, the premium is 50%, not 100%, right?
You're saying the same thing.
Yeah. So then over a 22-week schedule, 17% of their number is overtime.
Well, they're not on the job all 22 weeks. They're just on for their portion. So if a concrete guy has, a month to get the job done, he's only got the 4 Saturdays in there.
Got it. Okay.
It's per trade, so.
Laurel, I would suggest maybe we add to the criteria, you take a look at overtime when you look at any given trade and determine, again, I get your point. It's not a 22-week schedule, but let's, for the sake of argument, if it's a 22-week and it's a 17% premium, then maybe it's not worth it. So let's just add that criteria to
let me just clarify. There's not one trade that's 22 weeks. It's
understood.
It's 22 weeks of the job made up of the little pieces of each trade. So it's not understood. That many Saturdays.
But we're really only trying to capture, right, a month, Laurel, in that schedule, right?
Well, it was 22 working days, yes.
22 days, not 22 weeks.
22 days. That is what we push things.
Yeah.
That's what we were making up.
So my last comment on this, I just think it's a matter of diligence. Tom, I'm sure you're right. You seem to know, but I think as a matter of diligence, we need some data to back this up because it's a question. And if I have it, I think others might.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think Monica has her hand up.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Hey, Laura,
Yeah,
I have two
Monica.
questions. I have two questions. One is, on the 16th, are you going to, do you think you will have more information regarding the state cost sharing?
We should have met with them by then. That's 3 weeks from now. So hopefully we have a little better direction.
Okay.
That would certainly be our goal. Yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned incorporating cost savings, but that wouldn't have any impact on the quality of the end product. So can you expand on that at all?
I could probably give some examples. Let's see. Well, one that you may not like, but it's reduce. Here's one: reduce the number of plastic laminate colors from 12 different colors to no more than 6 different colors, because that's driving the cost of our casework numbers, because they have to have 12 different smaller versions of a certain color, and it just adds costs. So that in no way, shape, or form jeopardizes the quality of the product. It just means you have 6 colors and not 12. So that's a good example.
How did it start at 12, Laurel?
Oh, I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into that. I'm just giving examples of things that we can do to try to save some money. Another thing that has nothing to do with quality is we have some decorative bituminous pavement. So that's a little bit of a premium. It's a nice thing to have. It makes the project be beautiful, but there is a premium to that. So it doesn't mean anything. It has nothing to do with the quality of your bituminous pavement. It just looks nicer. And there, there's underground sanitary and storm that's under the building. We have cast iron. We can save some money by going to PVC. That's something that has been done on prior projects. So there are ideas like that.
Laurel, you also have talked in the past about the specifications and making sure that specifications are open so that the bidding opportunities on different types of the same type of product, but different companies that provide the same product is made sure that there is that flexibility.
Right. I think that also the controls, the temperature controls are basically sole source. So we'll talk to the district, talk to Kevin to see if they're open to entertaining other controls vendors. That's another way. You're still getting the same quality. You're still getting your temperature controls. It's just, it's a different way of going about it. So those are the types of ideas we're looking for.
Do you think that's a significant amount? I mean, are you looking at 5%, 15%, 2%?
No, it's not. It's probably less than 5%, but at this point, that's a big deal. 5% is a big 5% is a big amount across the 3 projects. So it's probably less than that, but still, it's a significant savings.
Appreciate you looking into that.
Chris, do you want to punt to Alan and Kevin and the principals and have them talk about what impact this has on the start of the school
I think
year?
I think that's a good idea. Why don't you go ahead? And see if they want to give us some input on the impact on school opening and how the schools need to pivot to a new schedule and what Kevin has done so far, kind of where that stands. That would be good input as well.
Oh, I could jump in. Alan, would you like to go first?
No, you're great. Go ahead. You're okay, Kevin. Go ahead.
So yeah, we've done some minor pivoting. Obviously, we began summer pretty aggressively getting ready for the project, and we've kind of had to adjust our thinking a little bit. Meeting with all 3 principals, it looks like we're going to open as a normal, quote unquote, school year, and we're ready to do that. We've started moving in one direction, but things like whether it's the Royal Library that was set to be demolished in phase 1 or the playgrounds being relocated, some of that has already happened, but some of it is going to either be paused or reversed completely. So all of that is set and ready to go, and the students should be not really impacted day one.
I think that since the since we're going to rebid the timetable here, changing, just deferring it for the full year just makes the most sense to us. Clearly, we'd like to open it, make sure we're open in time for that September date or August date in 26. But doing anything else, even though you can't do anything else with the schedule, the way the schedule works out with the rebidding is probably most helpful to the school system. And if we have to wait just another a year essentially to get what we need, then that's what we have to do. And that's probably better to do that, to be honest with you.
So,
Do the principals have any thoughts on that one way or another? Be good to hear from you guys.
I think that the waiting the year, like Alan said, makes the most sense for sure, instead of disrupting a lot of what's going on throughout the year. I also think, you know, I'm very aware of, and I'm sure everyone else is just how the community will respond to the delay, and just making sure we're super clear about how we communicate, you know, what the delay is and why. So I just think that's an important thing to take into consideration. But I think in terms of being ready to go, as Kevin said, we have amazing custodial staff. They just pivoted very quickly and are ready to go either way. But I think that we'll be able to open as usual and not change things.
I don't really have anything different from what everyone else has said in terms of opening school. We'll be ready, and going into this, you know, we did a lot of communicating about being flexible and things might change, and we've been ready to do that. So we'll be ready to open as normal. And I agree that I think waiting the year is what'll be best for kids, best for the building, and best for us to prepare to open under normal circumstances and then plan ahead from there.
Jameson, do you want to pick up on the communication portion of what they just said?
Yeah, so I'll be working with on behalf of the building committee and working with all of you to make sure that the principals, Dr. Adley, Kevin, everybody has a line of communication with us to you to let you know what our official decisions are, so that you can communicate them to the parents and to your staff and everybody else, that you can work with me directly if that helps, so that you don't have to worry about who you're having to contact for information. And I'll relay that info to you guys as well. But we'll start having a more formal line of communication to you guys so that everybody's all on the same page.
So just when talking about, sorry, Jill, do you want?
Well, just in terms of, it sounds like, I won't presume the committee needs to weigh in, but it sounds like we're going to delay. And I think, Jameson, we're prepared to message that we are going to delay, and why, probably as early as tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my question was going to be is if we're officially voting, if we need to vote on that before I have anything official going out as to what we're doing or not, or if that's just a statement we make.
Well, I think because we're not doing anything with bids, you know, we don't necessarily have to vote on the bids, but we may choose to officially agree as a committee we're going to delay. That's probably wise.
Right.
And then that way you can go ahead and communicate. And then Alan, I think Jameson has a press release that will be completed in the morning. And Alan, that will go to you as well, so that you can use that to send to your to the school community if that's how you'd like to communicate. But I think it makes sense to get the same message out all directions simultaneously.
Yeah, the goal is to do it the most efficient way possible, and you know, we don't necessarily have access to all the relevant people's information or email addresses, but you obviously all have direct lines of communication to the most interested parties in all of this. And so why complicate things or create any inefficiencies if you guys have all of that already, and parents and residents are looking for that information, they're going to look for it from you already. So.
Yeah, as soon as, I mean, if you have a press release or otherwise, just as soon as you get that to me, I can communicate to the elementary constituents here. If that's the way you would like to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think and I think that it's more than just that we're going to delay. I think it's, the committee to, that we agree we're going to delay, that we're going to adopt an adjusted schedule, and that we're going to direct ONGAP to continue their discussions with the bidders and to formulate a specific proposal on, which bids that we would accept, which bids we would rebid, and a specific and to come back to us on August the 16th with an update. But I don't know that that's a formal action of the committee, so much as it's just it's further direction to the ONGAP team. Jill, unless you disagree.
We can take a sense of the meeting too. That's fine. But I do think you need to know, or we need to know where the committee is. So it could either be by a show of hands, or each person can answer individually.
Yeah, I think it's probably easier to just poll people. Why don't we just roll through the members of the committee that are here, and is there any further discussion or comment, I'll just start. Jameson, from you, any further input from you, or are you on board with that being the next steps?
I'm on board, and I think what was important is the legwork that Dave and Laurel did, which I appreciate very much, of finding out from the trades why they didn't bid in this round. Because if we just rebid for the sake of rebidding and didn't know why, then we're kind of not making a smart decision as to solving any problem. And so, the input from you guys so far is basically saying, like, you're going to waste your money if you agree to any of these bids that we've gotten now. You may have to start value engineering stuff and leading to a worse product for the students and the teachers and the school. And that's far bigger of an issue, at least in my mind, than the scheduling is. And if delaying the project a year allows for better planning, lower bidding, better quality product at the end, I think everybody will be pretty unanimous in agreeing that a time delay is a very small price to pay for the sake of a better quality product for the students and in the town.
Thank you. I think well said. Dave Martin.
I'm good to go forward with the proposed revised plan. Seems like it makes sense. We'll get a small window to bid in between others going out to bid, and completely agree. We can't really accept bids where there was only one bidder on a particular package. That would not be consistent with how the town approaches projects.
Thank you, Sarah.
I agree. In order to not repeat everything everyone is saying, I do agree that delaying at this particular juncture is the best. And I look forward to hearing more from Laurel and Dave as to what happens on August 16th and seeing what we can do.
Tom Harris.
I'm in agreement with the revised plan here. Laurel and Dave, I think David Martin had sent you guys a spreadsheet to complete with a comparison of actual bids versus budget. When can we expect that? Because I think that will be helpful for comparison purposes once we have the next round of bids.
When you're saying comparison with the next round of bids, I did see that. I did see that Excel spreadsheet, and we will get it filled in. I just didn't have time.
Yeah, we'll work to get that filled in ahead of that August 16th update time.
Okay, great.
Dave, it's my understanding you have a little bit of it, or some fair amount of it done already. I think because it involves some, manipulation, if that could be, in time for the committee members to actually really look at it, So I would say, maybe at the latest that Friday before the meeting, please.
Yeah, I think that would be the 11th of August, right? Patrick Hayes?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Chris.
I think you're on mute.
I think he said he's in agreement. Yeah.
I am in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jill?
I'm in agreement. I definitively feel that we are, as a committee, and Jameson said a lot of it, but we feel that a quality product is critical. Value engineering is not an option. De-scoping is not an option. And Chris, you keep saying, and at the end of the day, it's not going to be about the time. It's going to be about what we delivered. So this is unfortunate. I do appreciate APONG doing a lot of legwork to help figure out a way forward. And, we certainly continue to feel that the legwork to get the bids in will be very critical. And we appreciate their commitment to making sure that we have an effective bid process in October. That really needs to happen. And I'd like to thank the school staff and the community for their flexibility, but particularly the school staff. And, certainly I'm looking at everyone, but especially Kevin and his team.
Yeah. Kevin and your team, yeah, you're sort of doing it, undoing it, and redoing it. So thank you for doing that, especially in a very hot summer.
Very welcome.
And as the last committee member, I likewise, I just echo what everybody on the committee has said. I don't have anything additional to add, and I'm likewise in agreement. Monica, anything? You have your hand up. I don't know if that's been there for a while and we've been rude and ignoring you, or your hand just hasn't come down from the last time.
Just didn't come down. But you know what? I do say when we're mentioning appreciation, these building committees are a tremendous amount of work for all of the volunteers. And, I'm looking at some people that are on multiple boards and like Sarah and like Jill. And, I know this is a disappointment, but we're going to work through it and we're going to come out with a great product. And I am convinced that the team that you've hired will make sure that this next phase goes smoothly. But I want to thank all of you for spending one more evening of your time on this project. That's it, and I'll take my hand down.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And just a quick call out to Tom Harris and Patrick for how quickly you guys have gotten up to speed and how you guys are adding a lot of value right off the bat. So appreciate you jumping in with both feet as much as you have as new committee members.
Thanks, Chris.
I don't know that we have anything else to discuss. I think we hit the critical dates. The critical dates coming up are August the 16th for our next report from ONGAP, and then September the 9th, where I think we actually will take formal action, or we will hopefully be teed up to take formal action. Unless there's anything else that anybody wants to add, I would like to get a motion to adjourn.
No, Chris, sorry, before you jump, please. Kevin, can you just quickly talk on the look of each of the schools, just because we had set out some expectations, and I also know that people ask questions about fields. So can you just briefly touch on that so the community is aware?
Oh, sorry.
Absolutely. So we'll just go in order real quick. So Hindley, visually is the biggest difference from last year. Playgrounds have been relocated. A new portable has been set on the campus for swing space in the anticipation of demolishing the existing portables. So that field in particular has a lot less green space than it used to. And my office is communicating that with all the youth groups. Homes, no change. We've held off on relocating that playground based on the way the bids were going. So essentially Homes is unaffected at this point. And last but not least is Royal, where other than O&G moving their trailer from Oxbridge down to Royal, which is going to go away before school starts, there's no change there as well. So we do have communications going out to our youth groups to let them know that field space will be more available than we had originally thought.
So thank you, Kevin. So then just in summary, Jameson is going to get out the press release. He will send that to Alan and to the press tomorrow morning, excuse me, correct, Jameson? Yep. Chris, you and I will need to talk to our fellow government bodies. I see Monica, of course, has been with us. I see Jim has joined us. We'll also need to talk to the RTM about potentially having an appropriation schedule built into mid-November through kind of December 21st. So I think we can go ahead and have those conversations so people are queued up. And of course, we had planned to go and see some of those boards in August, at least the selectmen and the finance. And then lastly, of course, we know what the meeting dates are. And somebody correct me if I get it wrong again, but August 16th and September 6th. Okay. And then the last piece, I think, is OSCG and Travis. Alan is away right now, but I think it's really critical. So if you are having trouble with OSC GNR, please coordinate with Alan so that we make sure we do have an answer before the 16th.
Yep, understood.
Yep, and I do want to just mention if December 15th is a deadline to get on the priority list, then we may need to back up, the town council because they need the town to approve the monies, right? So there's that last week in there. We just need to be aware of if we're supposed to be hitting that December 15th deadline. So okay.
Thank you. So we'll know that we should know that by the 16th meeting. Wonderful. Alan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to well, first again, thanks to everybody. But just since everybody's on here, and just restating the obvious, whatever Jameson gives me, that's fine. I can send it as it is, or with a supplementary communication. But I'm essentially saying to people that were delaying the start of the project to allow the rebidding process for trade packages, as was quoted earlier. And I'm going to cite the dates from the summer of 23 to the summer of 24 for start date, and for the fall of 25 to the fall of 26 for a completion date. That's the essence of the message, with a wee bit of other reassurance to the communities type thing about this coming year. But with that's the essence of the message, I would think, from me to my to the elementary parents and staff.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Nothing else from me, Chris. Thank you.
Okay. Then can we get a motion to adjourn unless anybody else has anything to say?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Really appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.